So today I want to talk about Nintendo Switch Online and specifically the conversation around whether or not Nintendo would entertain the idea of bringing the next logical console to the service, which is none other than the Nintendo GameCube. It is hard to believe, but the GameCube launched in late 2001, making it officially 22 years old now. So I think it's safe to say that it is at this point in time a retro console. And if you look at what Nintendo has done with Nintendo Switch Online specifically so far, they have continued to add in their retro console libraries one at a time, or sometimes a couple at a time, as we saw them initially launch the service with the NES back in 2018. In 2019, we got the confirmation that the SNES library of games would be joining the fold and be yet another system that we would just see as a value add to offer for the base tier. Same price, same subscription, everything, and Nintendo would position it as just yet another reason to sign up for their $20 annual membership. Then of course, in 2021, we did get the announcement that Nintendo would be expanding the content roadmap with the expansion pack for Nintendo Switch Online, which would up the annual retail cost for an individual membership to $50. But the trade-off is at that time we learned that we would receive the consoles of N64 and Sega Genesis. And while I've had a very love-hate relationship with those consoles because Nintendo's been extremely sporadic on adding in new games to them, specifically with the N64 over the course of 2023, we at least had them finally confirm the next logical step, which was N64 games, and many thought we might get the Game Boy family of systems before N64, but Nintendo actually threw us a curveball and gave us N64 first. Of course, we now know that as part of the expansion pack, you have access to Game Boy Advance library of games as of the February 2023 Nintendo Direct, where that was revealed, and the base tier would receive the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Although it's really just one emulator, it is basically covering both generations of those systems within it. And so we now find ourselves in a place where Nintendo is vastly successful with this service. In fact, at their most recent investor briefing, it was revealed that Nintendo Switch Online currently has over 38 million paying subscribers. Now, we don't know the breakdown of how many of those are expansion pack and how many of those are the base tier, but that is clearly a massive number and a massive amount of revenue that's being driven to Nintendo's bottom line year in and year out. And it's more or less static revenue that they can count on being there for the most part, outside of your percentage of cancellations that will naturally happen. But if you look at it from a business standpoint, it is definitely something that Nintendo wants to continue to grow, and that is why I believe we have seen them stick to this very strategic drip feed roadmap schedule of new content, because obviously Nintendo has the rights to all of their own first party games, and it doesn't take that much work to actually spruce them up a little bit, make them playable on the Nintendo Switch via emulation, but they are purposely drawing out the release time of each of these console library of games because they know that people will stay subscribed with the hope of getting new content added in. And if they front loaded everything all at once and you play through all the games you wanted to, you might be more likely to cancel that membership because you've already gotten the value out of it that you wanted to. But when it comes to the GameCube library of games specifically, we are seeing Nintendo do something very different with this particular library. And I would like to first make the point of a very recent Nintendo release that is not from the GameCube, but rather the SNES, which is none other than Super Mario RPG. This was a game that was originally out on the SNES, yet it was mysteriously missing from Nintendo Switch Online over all of these years since SNES has been available since 2019. Fans were wondering, where is Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars? It was a classic SNES game, and Nintendo even sold it on Virtual Console in the past. Why is it missing from NSO? Well, then we got the big reason behind it when we learned that Nintendo would be doing a remake for this game, and they would of course position that as one of their big holiday 2023 games, and that is the reason why we never saw that classic brought back to NSO, to help drive home the special nostalgic feeling that you could feel whenever you play through that the first time, with modern visuals and modern enhancements. And I am really falling in love with this game for the first time. It was a slow burn for me. If you saw my first impressions video, I wasn't that over the moon on it, but it's absolutely hooking me in with a fantastic story and gameplay mechanics throughout. But with the GameCube, we are seeing Nintendo actually do this same strategy with remakes and remasters, that much more than what they've done with any other console library in the Nintendo Switch generation specifically, as you can stop and look around at a bunch of recent releases and ones we know to expect on the horizon from the GameCube are getting re-released at either full price or just in a collection, such as Metroid Prime 1 Remastered. We know that we should probably expect Metroid Prime 2 Echoes Remastered as well, but these are of course classic era GameCube games, and while Nintendo is doing this as part of the marketing for Metroid Prime 4, they are still choosing to remaster and touch up some of these old GameCube games and resell them to us, as opposed to just throwing GameCube into Nintendo Switch Online and letting you enjoy the library of games that way. Now, I personally like this strategy for a number of reasons, because like we saw with Metroid Prime Remastered, we got the best of all worlds from a controller standpoint. It wasn't just the old way it played, we had modern dual analog support, and if you were somebody who bought the trilogy on the Wii and had nostalgia that way, you had motion controls enabled as well. You literally could play it however you wanted it. You could even revert back to the old classic GameCube style of controls, which is a little bit clunky in 2023, because you would essentially have to press the R button to aim and it would stop your character from moving around, because we only had one analog stick, although we did have two with the C buttons, but they didn't really treat that like a second analog in the GameCube era. Anyway, you get the idea. Nintendo sold that for $40 and they were widely successful with it. Pikmin 1 and 2 are both classic GameCube titles. We saw this released on the Nintendo Switch as a combo pack to celebrate Pikmin 4's release and to kind of give fans the opportunity to play the entire franchise all on one console, which is the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo was able to drive additional revenue by doing so. We of course saw Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which did include the GameCube classic known as Mario Sunshine, which, despite it being a controversial opinion, this is my favorite 3D Mario of all time ever. I really love the difficult platforming within it. It's one of my childhood games that I just absolutely fell in love with, and to this day I enjoy replaying it more than just about any other mainline 3D Mario game, and this is already available on the Nintendo Switch. Granted, you can say it's the one asterisk that it's not technically purchasable anymore, although you can track down a physical copy because Nintendo printed plenty of them, but it's not technically available via the eShop, and I hope we see Nintendo kind of one-off sell these Mario 3D games individually one day. Even if they only do it digitally, we're still missing Mario Galaxy 2. That's another conversation for another day, but anyway, besides that, we of course know that at the most recent Nintendo Direct, the show closer of the event was yet another GameCube remaster/remake in the form of Paper Mario: A Thousand Year Door. A classic fan favorite Paper Mario game will be brought to the Nintendo Switch from the GameCube era. And the point with all of this is that Nintendo definitely views the GameCube library of games as more valuable than potentially some of the consoles we've seen them just quickly throw into NSO so far. And so my personal belief is that we will eventually see GameCube added into Nintendo Switch Online. Whether or not it happens in 2024 is a total coin flip, but I do think it would be smart that if we see Nintendo indeed launch the Switch 2 likely in the fall or holiday season 2024, then maybe they revamp the service with Nintendo Switch Online 2.0, and not only do we figure out that everything transfers forward from NSO like they've more or less confirmed, it hasn't been said in plain words, but value-added services for Nintendo accounts are rolling forward. We know that, and we also know that NSO is considered a value-added service, so I definitely don't think Nintendo's hitting the reset button going into the next generation console. I think they're going to roll everything forward, and then maybe a big reason to get people to sign up for the first time or to renew their subscription heading into the new console would be to include the GameCube library of games well after all of these ports and remasters that they've handpicked have had the time to be individually sold to us, and that seems like the most likely path Nintendo will take to me. So I wouldn't expect it early into next year like at the February Nintendo Direct, but I would absolutely expect it to hit at some point in the next console's life cycle, and if Nintendo was really smart about it, they might choose to kick it off with a bang and add it in right in the launch window of the console. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see another handful of GameCube classics actually get the port/remaster treatment in the end of the current Nintendo Switch's life cycle. We still have GameCube classics like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess missing from the fold, whether or not those launch on next gen hardware or they're saved for this transition period where Nintendo obviously is still going to have games come out on their current console, but they also have to ramp up development for brand new games for the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they call it. And I would still love to see games like F-Zero GX make it over as a test to whether or not Nintendo should come back with that franchise in a big way. They can test the market by remastering an old classic title. I do think that we will see a number of GameCube remasters towards the end of this Switch's current life cycle, and maybe even some spill into the beginning of the next gen life cycle. And ultimately, once Nintendo has handpicked the titles that they want to sell to us individually as ports and remasters, we will then see them transition into GameCube being added into Nintendo Switch Online for next-gen hardware. That's at least my opinion on it, but that's where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video. What are your favorite GameCube era games that you want to play again on modern hardware? And do you want any specific games to get a port or remaster treatment as opposed to just being thrown on NSO? Or would you rather just see GameCube thrown on NSO sooner rather than later? What's the soonest you think Nintendo will make the addition of GameCube library of games to Nintendo Switch Online? Do you think it launches with the next-gen console or shortly thereafter, kind of like I do? Or do you think there's a chance that Nintendo surprisingly figures out a way to do it with the current hardware we have today, and we don't even have to wait that long to get the next library of games added in? But regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.